this is Lisa from Queen Bee Creations, and we're here today to make this beautiful watercolor card that's an emboss resist. I don't know if you can tell, but the words on here were embossed with white embossing powder, and then I went over it with the watercolor for this really pretty effect, and I want to show you how we did that. I started out with our watercolor paper. This is paper that is specially designed for watercolor. It's 140 pound, kind of a cotton fiber that allows it to get wet, and then when it dries, it's better at staying flat. So that's what we're going to get started with. I'm going to stamp on it with the Versamark ink. The Versamark is a kind of a stickier ink. It's going to go on wetter. And it's going to give me some time so that I can put the embossing powder on it and then heat it up. So just watch as I do this. We're going to stamp directly on the watercolor paper. And then you probably can't even see it, but there's a very slight shiny area where the ink is. And then I'm going to pour over some white embossing powder. You can be really generous with it because it's all just going to go back into the container. I then take a piece of paper and put it back in. So now you can see a little better, hopefully a little bit better, where the ink was. Now this would have been better had I initially used the Stamping Buddy that I had got out for this purpose, and then we wouldn't have embossing powder sticking where it doesn't belong. One of the things I usually keep on hand is a paintbrush, so that if it is ever in an area where it's not supposed to be, I can use a paintbrush to get it out. I'm going to go ahead and funnel this back into my container so I can use that next time. And then I'm going to use our heat tool. Now I've heard a lot of people say, oh, you just heat it up with a hairdryer. That's not exactly true. The heat tool has two different settings, a high and a low, and it's hotter than a hairdryer, and it's less air forced out of it, because if you were to blow on this with a regular hairdryer, it might have too much air that would blow the powder off from where it's supposed to stick. Another thing I'm going to say is as I heat this up, it's going to make some noise, and I'm going to speed it up so you don't have to watch me do it. But the other thing is, as I heat it up, you'll notice I'm going to heat from the bottom, and then I'll heat from the top, and then I'll heat from the bottom, and then from the top. And what this does is it keeps it even, because you'll see as I do that, it kind of curls as a result of the heat. And if I curl it both ways, I have a better chance of it staying flat. And it's just because one side of the paper gets hotter than the other. The other thing you could do is you could set it on something metal, say a cookie sheet or something, as you heat it up, because the cookie sheet would, retain heat on the bottom, applying heat from the bottom, and then you'd be using the heat tool from the top. But we're going to go ahead and emboss this. So I don't know if you can see, but as I heated it up, the powder melted, and now it's kind of a shiny surface, and it's usually dry pretty quickly. So now we're go ahead and ready to do our watercoloring. What I'm going to do is use our aqua painters. They're in our annual catalog. I should probably show you where all of these things are. The watercolor paper is here with our specialty papers on page 148. It's located right here. And then the watercolor marker I'm going to use, the aqua painters, they're right here, and I'm going to use a spritzer, which is here. These are on page 163. If you don't have a catalog, you want to make sure and contact me so that I can make sure you have one in your hot little hands. They are fabulous. they are not only a catalog that shows you all of our stamps, accessories, everything, and they're all in actual size, but it's also full of ideas. So it's a catalog / idea book. So you definitely want to have one of these on hand, because if you're ever stuck in a creative rut, this is the best way to get out of it, is just start flipping through our catalog. It is awesome. For the watercoloring, I'm just going to use our classic stamp pads, and I'm pressing them to push the ink pad against the lid, because that's going to put some coloring in my lid. So I'll squeeze this one. So there we have our Tempting Turquoise, and we'll do some Daffodil Delight. In order to do this, what I'm going to do is pick up our aqua painter, and I'm going to start with the lightest color first. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the Daffodil Delight. Oops. I forgot this step. We want to get it wet. Probably a good thing I did that, because you can see before I did the wetness, you could see the edges of where I was watercoloring, and now that I've got it wet, it flows a little better. So it's a lighter color, and it's drifting. It's letting the water pull it across the paper, and so you get kind of the more flowy watercolor look that we're actually kind of going for. Now I can use this same watercolor pen. I'm just going to run it on some blank paper until it's clear. So now that's been cleaned out, and I can pick up my next color. So I'll use some Tempting Turquoise. Now if this paper starts to dry out at all and it looks like, you know, I'm not getting enough water, you just squeeze the tip a little. And more water will come out of the barrel to help get the paper wet, because before you start playing with it, you fill the barrel with water. So there's the Tempting Turquoise. Again, I'm going to clean off the brush, and then I'm going to move to my Melon Mambo. And I'm just swiping the color across. So you're just going to play with it until you like the look. Clean off your brush. Then I'm going to set that aside and let it dry. Now for the purposes of our video, I've actually done another one. And I actually even went as far as to put the little embellishments on it. I used our fine tip glue pen, and I made little tiny dots, and then I set the sequins on it. On the example I started with, I used rhinestones. And so you get kind of a little bit different look. Still both very cool. And this one, like I said, is drier. It's got a little bit of a curl, but not quite as bad. You could put it between some books or something if you wanted to help flatten it out. And then I'm going to just adhere it to the front of my card with some snail adhesive. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to use Because You're Awesome in Tempting Turquoise. Then I'm going to use the flower. Let's do Daffodil Delight. And then Melon Mambo. And then we're going to do the little leaves in Wild Wasabi. Ooh! That's a little too much ink. This is a great example of what to do when there's too much ink on your pad. Sometimes when you first get your ink pad, or after you've re-inked it, or it's sat for a long time, it may be that a lot of ink, too much ink, puddles on the top. They are designed to sit this way so that it does puddle on the top of the pad, keeping them nice and juicy. But there is such a thing as a little too juicy. And so to help combat that, you take a spoon and you use the rounded edge and you just push down. So you just give a little bit of light, even pressure. And then you just wipe it off on the Stampin' Scrub and go back to stamping. So you'll notice now I'm not getting quite as much around the edge. I'm still getting some. But not so much this time that I'm leaving a ring on my paper. And I'm not afraid to let the leaves kind of hang off the edge. It still makes it look kind of natural. And then we just go ahead and adhere that to the inside of our card. So there you have it, a beautiful watercolor card done with rhinestones, sequins, and from a couple different angles. I hope you like it and you give it a try. Don't forget to stop over at my website, queenbeecreations.net, where you'll find further instructions and links to where you can purchase everything you need to make this card. And you can shoot me an email, and I'd love to be your demonstrator. Thanks for watching. Bye.